So I made a post on the Instagram page, which is at RPS Jamaica, asking people what type of property they would choose in terms of being the better investment, residential property or commercial property. Most people seem to be leaning towards choosing the residential property as being the better investment, which is understandable. But in this video, we're going to analyze both property types, residential and commercial. So after this video, you will have a better understanding of the advantages and the disadvantages, or the pros and cons associated with both property types or both investments. As usual, if you're enjoying the content, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share the video with somebody who might find it interesting. So we're going to start out by outlining some basic definitions in terms of residential properties and commercial properties, distinguishing between the two. Let's start with the residential property. Residential, resident, reside. What does the word reside mean? It generally means to stay. So the basic definition for residential properties is permanent or temporary private occupancy. Emphasis on the word private. As far as the definition for commercial properties, however, it's usually the exact opposite. It's generally not used for the purpose of living or residing. It's generally not private. And then the main aim of commercial properties is income generation. So let's outline some examples. An example of a residential property would be a regular house. And the example for commercial properties would be shop spaces, office spaces, retail stores, hotels, warehouses, factories. And these are usually purchased based on income generation or its ability to generate income. So we just went over the definitions and examples of both. Let's address the advantages and disadvantages, or the pros and cons of both. Let's start out with residential properties as an investment. The first advantage of residential properties is that houses tend to be lower priced in comparison to commercial properties. And one of the main reasons for this is demand and supply, where in comparison to commercial real estate, the supply for residential real estate is much higher, resulting in the residential real estate having the lower prices or the lower values of the two. The second advantage of residential real estate is everybody needs a place to live. And going back to the topic of demand and supply that I mentioned just now, as a result of a growing population and as a result of a new set of people getting to the age where buying a house now becomes possible every day, there will always be a constant need or a constant demand for residential property. And so what does this mean for a real estate investor or anybody purchasing residential properties? It means that in most cases, potential buyers will always be available and looking to purchase. Now, moving on to the disadvantage. As a real estate investor, meaning somebody who purchases rental properties or does house flipping, for example, this is one of the main disadvantages. The owner or landlord or investor in this case would be responsible for covering most of the maintenance costs or the cost associated with any issue that might arise. So for example, you would be responsible for any leaks or water problems or electrical problem, and you would be in charge of the landscaping, for example, or the general upkeep of the property. And that can be seen as a disadvantage because those costs individually all add up. So we cover the pros and cons, or the disadvantages and advantages of owning residential real estate. Now moving on to commercial real estate. Like I made mention of earlier, this might include office spaces, shop spaces, retail stores, or we can sum it up as business-related properties or business-related activities. So what's the major advantage and disadvantage of investing in these types of properties? The major advantage of owning or investing in commercial properties is high demand. And this is especially a major advantage in city areas. So for example, let's say we're in Kingston, Jamaica. Owning real estate, whether it be shop spaces or office spaces or vacant land, which is very rare, owning commercial properties in these areas would be extremely profitable. Profitable in the sense that those properties would be able to fetch higher prices as a result of being in high demand. And then profitable in the sense that you'd be able to fetch higher rental fees, for example. That same advantage also leads to the main disadvantage associated with commercial properties, which is the high barrier to entry or the high prices. So that's the end of the video. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and see you in the next one.